We're very honored to have Professor Paloma Liton from Duke University as our first guest. We are going to discover the secret behind being or becoming a successful international scientist in this webinar, and I hope you enjoy these interviews. So my first question is, Professor Liton, do you mind to introduce yourself a little bit, please?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Paloma Liton. So I am originally from Spain. So I came here to the US 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, and I came as a postdoctoral fellow, and then I became a founding member in the same place at Duke University, and I have been at Duke since then for 20 years. And I am still trying to be a successful investigator, so I'm still working on that.
Nice. But wow, that's a long time. 20 years in Duke.
Yeah, it's a long time, and especially staying in the same place for that
Yes.
was one of the challenges, but it is possible. You can do it.
But it helps with the networkings, right? Because it's easier to, relatively easier, I think.
Yeah, for me to get working, it was difficult. So my PhD, I am a molecular biologist, so I did my master degree in molecular biology, and then I made my PhD in virology. So I was new to ophthalmology, yeah, in Spain. So I did my PhD in Spain, and then I was new to the ophthalmology field. So the project was going to be to apply virology into gene therapy. I don't know viral gene therapy, but at the end, things moved to another direction. So now I'm working with lysosomes and biology. But yeah, it's a long process. It's a long process, and you all are international, so you know how challenging and difficult it is, especially also because you have to deal with all the immigration, all the visa, and then the opportunities are smaller. There are a lot of grants, the postdoctoral grants you can apply to NIH because you are not a US citizen, you are not a green card holder, so there are some foundations. So I was lucky to get some grants from foundations, but not everything is open, and then you are restricted to your lab. So if you don't like your lab, you cannot live freely, right? So there are some challenges there, being an international student.
Okay, so I have a question. It's like, when do you decide, or what is the reason you decide to stay in United States instead of returning back home to Spain?
Yeah. So I think I took the decision between the year 3 and 4. Yeah. There is a point in which you need to either decide to stay or to leave, because you need to belong someplace. You have to organize your life. You are getting older, and after 3 years postdoc, you have had a taste of what is being a researcher in the US, and usually you have still some contacts in your country. So if you want to go back, you can still go back. I think if you wait a little longer, then it's too late. Then you start to create roots here, and most importantly, you also miss and you all your contacts from your original country. And so I think I took the decision between year 3 and 4, and it's when I made also the transition from one visa to another visa.
So
So just following up on that one, as you said, changing from one visa to another, what immigration changes or statuses have you been through? So because there are a lot of international investigators. So.
I came with an J1, so this is a non-resident visa. So it has pros and cons. So I think it's a great visa to come to the US, and also for spouses, it's a good visa because the J4 allows work permit for your spouse. So I think that's one of the major advantages. You don't pay taxes, so that's a good starting one. But obviously, if you decide to stay in the US, you need to change your visa. Now I think when I came here, J1, you could be 5 years. So I was lucky that I was not. I was this 2-year exempt, so I didn't have to go back to Spain, so I was able to stay here. So from the J1, I transitioned to H1, And the H1 has pros and cons. One of the major cons of the H1, when in my time, I think it changed now, is that your partner, your spouse cannot work with an H4. So that's it.
I like that. That is still the same situation.
Yeah. So
your spouse cannot work.
Yeah. So H4 is very, very bad visa. So the H1, the good thing with the H1 is that it's a resident visa. So if you study, then you can pay in tuitions, all these things. But for spouses is the worst one. And then when I was doing that, when I was under the age, is when I started with the green card process. So in my case, I have two green card processes at the same time. It was when I transitioned to faculty to Duke. I started the process paid by the university, but because things was not very clear, the timing and everything, I also started the process by myself. So I applied as a national interest waiver, and then I am lucky. I am from Spain. I was able to apply both processes at the same time. So the 130 and then the actual green card. So, and it was a very quick process. I think I got the green card once it was accepted in 6 months.
Wow.
But it was a little stressful because the day that we submitted our green card for the first time, the US shut down the green card program. So the Duke green card never made it. Our personal green card arrived the very same day. So it was stamped that day. So it was shut down for 1 year, almost 2 years. So it was stressful. I mean, what is this?
Yeah.
And then after 5 years with the green card, I became a US citizen. So now I am, free.
Yes, you can apply all the grants that you can from the government.
And with the green card, for me, the citizenship, it was, okay, now I can vote. But I remember when I received the green card, and it was December 24th. So it was like, okay, Santa brought me the green card, because you feel like you're, for the first time, a person here, right? And you're free. I don't depend on my PIs. If things don't work, I can go outside and I can work wherever. I don't have to leave the country in 1 month. And that's the major problem with the H1s. Is if something happens, you need to leave the country and your life in 1 month. And this is something that most people, non-international, don't understand what it put on us being international students, having this. I need to do whatever they are asking me to do, no matter what. If not, I need to leave. So green card, it was incredible. It was really, really, really amazing. It was really good.
Great, good to know. And then I think we cover a little bit of the funding situation. If you're being international student, it's very difficult. That's why I know that's the reason you pursue getting the green card, make you more stable in terms of the job and also funding opportunity. So in terms of the green card situation, would you suggest as a young investigator like me or like Tirthankar would suggest them to their PI to sponsor their green card application?
So obviously it changed from one institution to another. In my time, Duke my institution was not sponsoring green cards for postdocs. Now I think it depends on the PI. I just sponsor a green card for my research associate, and he got the green card some months ago. So I think PIs should consider always try to help the people who are in your lab to get a stable situation and to get the green card.
But, this was Cecilia mentioned this to me, and this was really new information for me that such a thing can happen, because all I have heard mostly is like when they reach a tenure track position, then the university applies. But I did not know.
Yeah, so you cannot use NIH funding to do that. So you need to use your discretionary funding. You cannot. It's not sponsored by Duke University, so Duke University didn't sponsor it was sponsored by them, by Duke, but it was paid by my discretionary account. So it can be done,
Okay.
but it depends on the PI
and it has to be non-NIH funding.
It's non-NIH funding, yes.
Okay.
So that's the major reason. But on the other hand, you have the H1 situation. There's a time in which the H1 expires also, and you cannot apply to more.
Yeah.
So I think perhaps because I am an international student and I went through that, so I was a little bit more willing to sponsor green cards, but obviously it depends on the PI and also on the institution. But my advice for everyone is, as soon as you decide you're going to stay, start pursuing the green card. It makes a difference. It's your life, basically.
Yes. So that would be the last follow-up question that I have is like, how would us approach the PI to convince them, hey, can you give us a green card? Or like working here for a longer time?
I think it depends mostly on the PI. You can ask the PI and you can, say, I am willing to perhaps stay 1 year. One of the major problems with the green card is that once you get your green card, you can leave the lab. So you have made an investment and you pay the process, the lawyer and everything, and then the person who is in the lab can say, well, now I am leaving. So my approach was a little similar to what some of the companies do, is I'm going to sponsor the green card, but the condition is that you need to stay 1 year in the lab. If you don't stay 1 year in the lab, then you will need to, I can ask you to return this, all these attorney fees and that we pay, because one of the statements that you need to do when you apply for a green card is that your intention is to stay in that job position. So in that case, my staff member, I knew that it was an understanding, so it was very clear. So I think that's a starting point to ask the PI, well, this is a situation, we are with the H1, and the H1 is a visa that if you have an spouse, he or she cannot work, and my kids at the school, they are also considered, they are not, they cannot apply to many of the things because they are not residents, they are not green card. I would like to move forward. Which are the chances of the university to sponsor the fees and the attorneys of the green card process? And I understand that this is very costly, blah, 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 and I will make possible for me to stay at least 6 months, 1 year. I don't have any intention to leave the lab. So I think it's the most important, trust, be honest, both parts, and make sure that you are not just getting the green card because you are going to leave. It's because you want to make your status a little more stable in the country.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I would just ask one thing regarding the investment from the PI on this aspect. That can you give sort of like a ballpark figure of how much
7,000.
roughly?
About
7,000.
Okay. Yeah. It's 7,000 for the staff member. If the PI decides to also send that application to the family, it's more expensive. But for the one person, it's about $7,000. Yeah.
But once that person gets, that person can also apply separately for the spouse, right?
Yeah. So what is being usually done is the department, the PI pays for that for the investigator, and then the investigator pays for the family. So they process everything at the same time, but with the lawyer. But the family fees are being paid by the staff member. But yeah, it can be done, but obviously depends on.
I think this discussion and interview is very helpful for us in terms of like young investigator, if we plan to stay, what we should do, and then if we leave,
absolutely.
Later. And then we really appreciate your time, and I'm going to
I would like to add one thing. It's also don't assume that the PI don't want to sponsor H1s, because now it's happening. H1s, there are several labs that they are not sponsoring H1s or green cards. especially if they are national, if they are citizens, they don't understand how the process. So I think indeed the university should educate also the PIs on the process of immigration and the green cards and all the type of visas, because most of the PIs don't know anything about this. They haven't gone through this process as you have gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't assume that there is, bad.
No, it's a great advice for all international young investigators that if once you have built the trust, probably just go and talk, because like you said, the person probably doesn't know even he or she wants to help, but has no clue.
Yeah. And now you have seen that with COVID, there are these people that they went back to the country just for vacations, and then they never came back because the H1s were never stamped. They got stuck in their country. So it's a situation that is not good for both sides. So I think once everyone gets green card, everything calm down, everything works much better. So.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording, but then if you